My name is Elena Vance, and by the time I was 35, my parents had spent 2 decades pretending I had never existed. They threw me out when I was just 16, pregnant and terrified, on a cold November night. Last week, they showed up at my door with a briefcase full of cash, demanding to meet the grandson they'd been bragging about to their wealthy social circle for nearly a year. They had no idea that the boy they had invented, the boy they had promised to 200 of their most influential friends, was a complete fiction. And what they found when they tried to collect on their lie would shatter the flawless reputation they had spent half a century constructing. My name is Elena Vance. I'm 36 years old. But when I close my eyes, I can still feel the November rain soaking through my thin sweater, the weight of a single, cheap suitcase pulling on my arm. I was 16, a sophomore at West Hills Academy. My father, Robert, was a prominent corporate attorney with his own firm, Vance Associates. My mother, Patricia, was the chair of every important charity gala and sat on the school board. On the surface, we were the picture of success. But our home had a quiet, invisible architecture. My older brother, Mark, was 22, in medical school, the heir apparent, the one who could do no wrong. My sister, Jennifer, was 20, studying law, the perfect, compliant daughter who echoed our parents' opinions. Then there was me, the surprise, as my mother called it, born 6 years after she thought her family was complete. I was the disruption to her perfect plan. The family photos in the hallway always seemed to run out of wall space before my school picture could be hung. Dinner conversations were clinical updates on Mark's surgeries or Jennifer's moot court victories. When I made the honor roll, my father would pat my head and say, "Good for you, Elena," before turning back to his steak. I learned to be quiet, to need less, to exist in the margins of my own life. My father had a mantra he'd recite at every family gathering. A reputation takes a lifetime to build and a single moment to demolish. I never imagined I would be the moment he feared most. I met Leo Castillo at the downtown public library. To anyone else, it was just a building, but for me, it was oxygen, a place where no one expected me to be a certain kind of person. I went there to study, but really, I went there to be unseen. Leo went to Roosevelt High, the public school my parents viewed as a different planet. He was 17, worked at his uncle's garage, and had a smile that felt like warmth on a cold day. He found me crying in the history section after my mother had forgotten to pick me up from school yet again. "Hey," he said, sitting down across from me. "Rough day?" No one had ever just asked, not like that. We kept our relationship a secret for 2 months. He was kind and steady and made me feel like I was actually seen. November 15th, 2004. I'll never forget staring at that pregnancy test in the bathroom of a diner a mile from school. 2 lines. My whole world tilted. When I told Leo, he didn't flinch. He just took my hands and said, "We're in this together, Elena. I'm not going anywhere." I wanted so badly to believe him, but I knew my parents. I knew their first question wouldn't be, "Are you okay?" It would be, "Who knows?" I chose to tell them at Sunday dinner. It was the last meal I would ever eat at that table. Sunday, November 21st, 2004. 6:15 p.m. The turkey was dry. I remember staring at it, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I have something to tell you." The clinking of forks stopped. 4 faces, my parents, Mark home for the weekend, Jennifer visiting from college, all looked at me. "I'm pregnant." The silence was deafening. My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. My father's face went completely still. "Who is the father?" His voice was low and dangerous. "His name is Leo Castillo. He goes to Roosevelt High. He works at his uncle's garage." My mother's face drained of all color. "A boy from the public school? He works at an auto shop," my father repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "What does his father do?" "He lives with his uncle," I whispered. The silence stretched for an eternity. Then my father stood up slowly. "You will not keep this child." My mother started to speak, but he cut her off. "She will not destroy everything we've worked for." He looked at me then, not with anger, but with a cold, surgical detachment, like I was a problem to be excised. "If you choose to have that baby, you are no longer a part of this family." By 8:45 p.m., I was standing on the front porch in the rain. My mother had opened the door and pointed into the dark. Not my father, my mother. Mark and Jennifer watched from the upstairs window. They never came down. I called Leo from a payphone outside a gas station. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the buttons. He picked up on the first ring. "Elena, what's wrong?" "They kicked me out." 15 minutes later, his uncle's beat-up truck skidded into the parking lot. Leo jumped out, wrapped his jacket around me, and held me as I shook and cried. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." We had nothing, maybe $200, and nowhere to go. That's when Clara Davies became our lifeline. She was our elderly neighbor, a retired schoolteacher who lived 3 doors down. She'd seen me standing in the rain from her window. She'd waited, watching, until she understood. "You can stay with me," she said when I knocked on her door, shivering, at nearly 10 p.m. "For as long as you need." We stayed with Mrs. Davies for 2 weeks, until Leo found us a studio apartment in Seattle. $400 a month, above a laundromat that always smelled of detergent and damp fabric. My parents had their lawyer draft a formal disclaimer letter the night they threw me out. My father made sure to mail me a certified copy 3 days later. It was a cold, legal document stating that Elena Marie Vance forfeited all claims to any inheritance, and that the Vance family bore no responsibility for me or any issue resulting from my pregnancy. I kept that letter. I've kept it for 20 years. Maya Grace Vance Castillo was born on July 12, 2005, at Harborview Medical Center. 6 pounds, 11 ounces, 10 tiny fingers and 10 tiny toes. Her father's warm, dark eyes and my stubborn chin. She came into the world with a furious cry, and I remember thinking, yes, scream. Let them hear you. Never let anyone make you feel small. The first 5 years were a blur of survival. Leo worked double shifts at a garage in Ballard. I finished my GED, then started taking community college classes, 1 or 2 at a time, whatever I could manage around Maya's schedule. We lived on peanut butter sandwiches and day-old bread from a bakery that gave it away for free. I learned to mend clothes until the fabric gave out. I sent my parents a birth announcement when Maya was born. No response. I sent a photo on her first birthday. Silence. By her second, I stopped trying. Leo and I never got married. We always said we would, when we had enough money for a proper celebration. Someday just kept getting pushed back. Then, on a rainy March morning in 2010, a delivery truck ran a red light. The police officer who came to my door said Leo died instantly. He was 26. Maya was 4. The life insurance policy through Leo's work gave me $12,000. That was it. $12,000 for 26 years of a good man's life. I was 22, a widow with a 4-year-old, $12,000, and absolutely no one to call. I could have given up, but I didn't. I'd always had a knack for making small spaces feel warm and inviting. While Leo was alive, I'd helped neighbors decorate their apartments for fun. After he died, I turned that knack into a lifeline. I started staging homes for real estate agents who were willing to take a chance on a young mom with no credentials. I had an eye for it, they said. A gift. In 2012, I met Miriam Shaw at a design seminar. She was 55, a retired creative director from a big firm and looking for a project. For some reason, she chose me. "You have raw talent," she told me. "Let's polish it." In 2014, with Miriam's mentorship and a $40,000 small business loan that took me 3 tries to secure, I founded Hearth and Haven Interiors. Our first office was a closet in a shared workspace. By 2019, we had 10 employees and were turning a profit. In 2022, a lifestyle magazine in Seattle ran a profile on me. From teen mom to design entrepreneur, Elena Vance's journey. I told the reporter everything. The pregnancy, being disowned, losing Leo, building a business from nothing. I left out my parents' names, not to protect them, but to protect Maya from anyone who might connect her to people who wished she'd never been born. By 2024, we had 25 employees and were on track to clear $5 million in revenue. My daughter was 19, a junior at the University of Washington, studying sociology. She was brilliant and fearless. 20 years, no contact from the Vance family, until last Tuesday. Tuesday, November 4th, 2024, 7:15 p.m. I was driving home from a huge client meeting, my mind full of fabric swatches and color palettes when I turned onto my street and saw the car. A black Mercedes, Oregon plates. My heart stopped. I parked in my driveway and just sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at 2 figures standing at my front door. The man was thinner, his hair completely gray. The woman stood with that same rigid, unyielding posture, a lifetime of control etched into her spine. Robert and Patricia Vance, my parents. I hadn't seen them in 20 years. I thought about driving away, going to a hotel, pretending this wasn't happening, but I was 36 years old. I had built a life. I would not run. I walked towards them. My father spoke first. "Elena, you look well." He was appraising me, my house, my car, my tailored coat. "What are you doing here?" My mother stepped forward. Her face was more lined, her hair a careful, expensive blonde. "We know about your son, Elena. We know you have a son." I just stared at her. "We want to meet him," my father added. "We want to fix things as a family." The sheer absurdity of it almost made me laugh. 20 years of silence, and now they were on my porch asking to meet a grandson they'd never acknowledged. A grandson that didn't exist. I let them in. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear the reason for 20 years of silence. My father sat in my living room, his eyes scanning the custom shelves, the art, the expensive furniture, calculating its worth. My mother perched on the edge of my sofa, her back ramrod straight. "Your anniversary," I said. 50 years, that's why you're here." My father gave a small, tight smile. "November 22nd. We're having a celebration at the Benson Hotel. 200 guests. The mayor, the bishop, the entire state bar association." "What does that have to do with me?" My parents exchanged a look. "There have been questions, Elena," my mother said. "About you, about what happened. People remember we had a third child," my father continued. "They ask where you are. We've always said you moved away, started fresh overseas, but the questions are getting harder to deflect. So you need me to show up, smile, prove the Vance family is a perfect, happy unit." "Need your son," my mother said, her voice firming up. "We've told people about him, about our grandson. He needs to be there, representing the future of the Vance name." The room went cold. "Who told you I have a son?" "We read that magazine article," my father waved a dismissive hand. "It mentioned your child, your business. You've done better than we anticipated." Better than they anticipated. As if my entire life was a test I might have failed. "And if I refuse?" My father's jaw tightened. He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a check. A blank check. The sight of it made my stomach churn. "We're prepared to compensate you," he said, placing it on my coffee table. $250,000. You bring your son to the party, stay for a few hours, take some family pictures, and then you can go back to your life." I stared at the check, then at my mother, who was nodding as if this was perfectly reasonable. $250,000, I repeated. "That's the price for 20 years of silence. We're also prepared to reinstate you in the family trust." My mother leaned in, her voice dropping. "The estate is worth over $4 million. You'd get an equal share with Mark and Jennifer." I thought of that studio above the laundromat, of the nights I worked double shifts while Maya slept in a playpen behind a coffee shop counter, of the years of building something from ashes. "And if I say no?" My father's expression hardened. "We'd rather not involve your son directly, Elena, but if we have to, we can reach out to him ourselves, help him understand his family history." It was a threat, clear and unmistakable. "You want to contact my child," I said slowly, "and tell them your version of history. We want to be a family again." My mother spread her hands, the picture of reason. "Isn't that what you've always wanted?" I was about to answer when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Everything changed. "Mom, everything okay?" I heard voices. Maya stopped at the bottom of the stairs, a textbook in her hand. She was in sweats and a university hoodie, her hair in a messy bun, a normal 19-year-old. My mother shot to her feet, her face cycling through confusion and then dawning horror. "Who is this?" "This is Maya," I said, stepping slightly in front of her. "My daughter." "Daughter," my father's voice cracked. "But the article said it said your child." "The article said child." You filled in the rest. Maya's eyes moved from me to the strangers in our living room. She understood instantly. "These are them, the grandparents who threw you out when you were pregnant with me." My mother flinched. "That's not, it was more complicated." "Which part?" Maya crossed her arms. "The part where you kicked a 16-year-old out in the rain, or the part where you spent 2 decades pretending she didn't exist?" "Young lady," my father started. "I'm not your young lady. I'm the granddaughter you wished out of existence before I was even born. I know everything. Mom never hid it, the letter, the inheritance papers, the story about her going abroad." My parents sat in stunned silence. Maya looked at me. "They came for a grandson, didn't they? A show pony." "Yes." She turned back to them with a cold, bright smile. "Surprise." My father recovered first, the lawyer in him calculating the new variable. "A granddaughter," he said carefully. That can work, we can adjust. Maya can come to the party as what?" Maya cut him off. "The secret granddaughter you've been hiding for 19 years, the daughter of the teen mom you threw away. We could say you were studying abroad," my mother pleaded. "Recently returned, a joyful reunion." "I was born in Seattle. I've never left the country. I'm a junior at UW." Maya laughed, a hollow sound. Do you even hear yourselves? You want me to lie to 200 people about my entire existence just so you can save face? The party is November 22nd. My father checked his watch as if timing was the only real problem. 10 days, we need an answer by the 20th. I stood up. I think you should leave. Now. My mother rose, gathering her purse. At the door, she turned back. This is a chance to heal, Elena. Don't let old wounds cost you everything you've built. I watched them walk to their Mercedes. Watched my father help my mother into the passenger seat. When the car disappeared, Maya spoke. You're not actually thinking about this, are you? I looked at my daughter, the fierce, brilliant young woman I'd raised alone, the person Robert and Patricia Vance had tried to erase. No, I said, but I'm not done with them yet. Before we go on, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a position where the people who were supposed to protect you only came back when they needed something? I'd genuinely love to know what you would have done. Drop a comment below. And if you want to see how this ends, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. That night, after Maya went to bed, I pulled a fireproof box from the back of my closet. Inside were the artifacts of my erasure. The notarized letter of disinheritance, dated November 21st, 2004, signed by Robert and Patricia Vance. I remembered the day it arrived, certified mail, requiring my signature. As if he wanted proof that I understood I'd been excised. The document was 3 pages of cold, precise language. I photographed every page. Uploaded them to the cloud, made backups. Mom! I looked up. Maya was standing in my doorway. I couldn't sleep either. She sat beside me on the bed, looking at the papers. Is that the letter? Yes. She picked up the first page, reading slowly. When she finished, her eyes were bright. They really did it, she whispered. They just cut you out like you were nothing. They did. She looked at me. What are you going to do with these? I looked at my daughter, at the evidence of 20 years of calculated cruelty. I don't know yet, I admitted. But whatever I do, they won't be able to pretend anymore. Maya nodded slowly. I might have an idea. The next morning, I called a number I hadn't dialed in over a year. Clara Davies answered on the 3rd ring. Elena, is that you, sweetheart? Mrs. Davies, I hope it's not too early. Nonsense, what's wrong? I told her about my parents' visit. The imaginary grandson, the money, when I finished. She was quiet for a long moment. Those people, she finally said. 20 years and they haven't changed one bit. Mrs. Davies, I need to ask you something. That night, November 21st, 2004, do you remember it? Like it was yesterday, I watched you from my window, saw you standing in the rain with that little suitcase. Do you still have your security camera footage from back then? A pause. You know, I never delete anything, old teacher's habit. Let me check my files. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email, a grainy but unmistakable image. A 16-year-old girl standing on a porch in the rain, 9:23 p.m. November 21st, 2004. The address was partially visible. That's you, Mrs. Davies said when I called her back. That's the night. Would you be willing to verify this officially if I need you to? Honey, I've been waiting 20 years for someone to ask. Whatever you need. 2 pieces of evidence. 2 witnesses. Now I needed a plan. I spent that evening rereading my own story. The magazine profile from 2022 was still online, shared over 15,000 times. I'd been careful in that interview. I mentioned being estranged from my family without naming names. I talked about becoming a mother without identifying the parents who'd cast me out. Not to protect them, but to protect Maya. Now I scrolled through the comments. Thousands of them. This woman is incredible. I went through something similar. Someone should make a movie about her life. One comment caught my eye, posted just 2 weeks earlier. Does anyone know if she's related to the Vance family in Portland, the law firm people? Someone in my church mentioned it. So that's how they found out. My phone rang. Miriam Shaw. Elena, I heard through the grapevine your parents materialized. I laughed. News travels fast. This is Seattle. Everything travels fast. What do you need? I don't know yet. Perspective. What I know, Miriam said, is that you've spent 20 years proving who you are without them. Don't let 3 hours at their party undo that. She was right, but I was already thinking bigger than 3 hours. Thursday, November 6, 2024, 4:15 p.m. My phone showed an Oregon area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Elena, it's Mark. 20 years, my brother's voice was older, heavier. Mark, I know I have no right to call. I know you have no reason to talk to me. He exhaled shakily. But I need you to know some things before whatever happens next. Then talk. The grandson story, that came from Mom. She read the magazine article 2 years ago, but she didn't read it carefully. She just saw child and successful business and constructed this whole narrative about you having a son. She invented a grandson, told her church friends, her club friends, built an entire story about this brilliant young man. Dad went along with it. They've been dining out on your imaginary son for months. I closed my eyes. Even now, their capacity for delusion was stunning. Why are you telling me this? Because I was a coward, Elena. 20 years ago, I should have come downstairs. I should have said something. Jennifer and I have talked about it for years. We were wrong. And now I want to make it right, whatever that looks like. He paused. The anniversary party. Jennifer and I will be there. If you decide to come, you won't be alone. I didn't know what to say. Mark talked for another hour. He told me about the unwritten rules of being a Vance child, the constant performance. The way our parents used approval as a weapon. Jennifer has 2 kids, he said. She's terrified of them growing up the way we did, never knowing if they're good enough. Why didn't you ever reach out in 20 years? Long pause. I almost did 5 years ago. I had your number. I dialed it a dozen times, and every time I hung up, because I knew that if I talked to you, I'd have to admit what I let happen, and I wasn't ready. What changed? Seeing them show up at your door demanding a grandson that doesn't exist, watching them try to buy you. It made me realize if I don't say something now, I never will. There's something you should know, Elena, Mark added. The anniversary party. There's going to be a family moment that gets live-streamed on the church's Facebook page. The bishop's dia, a show of unity. A live stream. 200 witnesses in person. And who knew how many more watching online? Thank you for telling me, Mark. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, but I'm starting to see it clearly. Friday, November 7th, 2024. 11:30 a.m. My father called directly this time, no preamble. Elena, we're running out of time. The party is in 2 weeks. 250,000, full reinstatement in the trust, final offer. I've been talking to Mark. Silence. He told me about the grandson story you've been telling people, the one you invented based on an article you didn't read. That's not, we may have embellished slightly. You invented an entire person. You've been telling your friends about your successful grandson for months, a grandson that doesn't exist. Elena, my father's voice hardened. I don't appreciate your tone after everything we're offering. What exactly are you offering? Money to make me perform for your friends, a spot in a trust you used to erase me. My voice was calm, steady. You're not offering me anything. You're trying to buy your way out of a lie you created. You have no right to judge us. You're the one who destroyed this family. You're the one who brought shame. I was 16 years old. I was pregnant and terrified, and I needed my parents. And you threw me out like garbage and spent 20 years pretending I died. If you don't come to this party, Elena, you will never have another opportunity to be part of this family. You said that 20 years ago, and you know what? I built a better life without you than I ever would have had with you. He hung up. I sat in my office, heart pounding. 2 weeks, 200 guests. 1 live stream. It was time to stop letting them control the narrative. That evening, I sat at my dining table with Maya and Miriam. They want a performance, Miriam said. They want you to show up, smile for the cameras, validate 20 years of lies. They want to use you, Maya added, the same way they've always used you. I looked at both of them, my mentor, my daughter, the family I built. I'm going to that party. Maya's head snapped up. Mom, no, not to give them what they want, to give myself what I need. I pulled out my phone, showing them the photos of the disinheritance letter, Mrs. Davies' security footage, the magazine article. They've spent 20 years controlling my story, telling people I went abroad, inventing a grandson, making me disappear. And you want one disappear, Miriam said slowly. I want to tell the truth in front of everyone who matters to them, on their stage, at their party, during their precious live stream. I took a breath. Not to humiliate them. Stop letting them pretend I don't exist. I'm coming with you. Maya's voice was firm. They need to see who I really am, not their imaginary grandson, me. I reached for her hand. Are you sure this could be brutal? I've spent my whole life knowing that my grandparents chose their reputation over my existence, I'm sure. I called Mark that night. Your offer to stand with me, does it still hold? Jennifer and I talked, we're ready. Then I need you to do something. Don't warn Mom and Dad. Don't tell them I'm coming. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I looked out at the Seattle skyline, at the life I'd built from nothing, because in 1 week we were going to show them what family actually means. Saturday, November 22nd, 2024, 7:00 p.m. The crystal ballroom was everything my parents would have chosen. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths starched within an inch of their lives, flower arrangements that cost more than my first car, 200 guests in formal wear, sipping champagne, murmuring about stocks and vacation homes. I stood in the entrance with Maya beside me. She wore a simple burgundy dress. I'd chosen charcoal gray, professional. Understated, impossible to ignore. "You okay?" she whispered. "I'm about to crash my parents' 50th anniversary party and tell 200 people they've been lying for 20 years. I squeezed her hand. "I'm terrified." "That's not what I asked." I looked at her. This incredible young woman who'd grown up knowing her grandparents had tried to erase her, who'd built her own strength from that knowledge instead of letting it break her. "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay." We walked in. The room was arranged around a raised platform at the far end where my parents would give their speeches. A camera crew was setting up the live stream for the church. I could see the Facebook Live indicator already blinking. And there they were, Robert and Patricia Vance. Standing on that stage, surrounded by well-wishers, my mother in gold silk, my father in a tailored black suit, both glowing with the confidence of people who believed they'd won. They hadn't noticed us yet. The room was too crowded, but heads were starting to turn. Someone near the door whispered, "Is that the daughter from the magazine?" The whispers spread like ripples. And then my mother looked up. My father had just begun his speech. 50 years of marriage has taught me that family is everything. Patricia and I have built our lives around that principle. Our children, our community, our faith. His voice carried across the ballroom, amplified by the microphone, captured by the live stream camera. On a small monitor near the stage, I could see the Facebook comments scrolling. "Beautiful couple. God bless the Vances. What an inspiration." My mother saw me first. Her champagne smile froze. I watched her hand tighten on my father's arm. He followed her gaze, stopped mid-sentence. The room began to notice. Heads turning, whispers building. Someone near the back said loud enough to carry, "That's her from the magazine, the design CEO." Someone else, "I thought she was in Europe." My father recovered first. "As I was saying, family has always been." I started walking toward the stage. The crowd parted, not dramatically, but people stepped aside, sensing something was about to happen. Maya walked beside me, her chin high. Mark appeared at the edge of the crowd, Jennifer beside him. They didn't try to stop me, they just watched. "Elena!" My father's voice came through the speakers, strained. "What a surprise, we weren't expecting." I climbed the 3 steps to the platform. The live stream camera tracked me. I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on me, plus however many were watching online. "Hello, Dad." I took the microphone from his hand before he could react. "Hello, everyone, my name is Elena Vance. For those of you who don't know me, and many of you don't, I'm Robert and Patricia's youngest daughter." I paused. "The one they told you went to Europe 20 years ago." The silence was absolute. "I didn't go to Europe," I continued. "On November 21st, 2004, 20 years ago tomorrow, my parents found out I was pregnant at 16. That same night, they threw me out of their house. They had their lawyer draft papers disowning me. They told me I was dead to them." Someone gasped. The live stream comments were exploding, scrolling faster than anyone could read. "They told everyone I'd gone abroad. For 20 years, they pretended I didn't exist." I reached into my bag and pulled out the notarized letter. "This is the document my father mailed me 3 days after throwing me out. It states that I forfeit all inheritance rights and that the Vance family has no obligation to me or, quote, any issue thereof." I held it up to the camera, close enough to read. "That issue." "That's my daughter, Maya." I gestured to where she stood at the edge of the stage. "Your granddaughter, who you've never met. The grandson you've been telling your friends about for months doesn't exist. You invented him based on a magazine article you didn't read carefully." My father grabbed for the microphone. "Elena, this isn't the place." "When is the place, Dad?" I held the mic out of his reach. "When is the right time to tell the truth? You came to my house last week offering me $250,000 to parade a fictional grandson at this party. $250,000 to make your lie look real." I turned to the crowd, to the camera, to the 200 witnesses and the thousands watching online. "I didn't come here for money. I came here because I'm done being erased." The bishop stepped forward. "Robert, is this true?" My father couldn't answer. My mother started crying. I'd seen Patricia Vance cry once in my entire childhood at her own mother's funeral. Now tears streamed down her face, ruining her careful makeup. "Robert," the bishop's voice was firm. "I asked you a question. Is what your daughter's saying true?" The room held its breath. My father looked at the crowd, the mayor, the bar association members, the church elders who had respected him for decades. I watched him calculate, search for an angle, try to find words that would spin this. He couldn't find them. It was a difficult time, he finally said. We made decisions that, you threw me out because I was pregnant. My voice stayed calm, because your reputation mattered more than your child. Mark stepped onto the stage, then Jennifer. They stood beside me, not touching but present. She's telling the truth, Mark said, his voice carrying. Jennifer and I were there that night. We watched from the window while our parents put our 16-year-old sister out in the rain. We never said anything. That was our failure. The whispers became a roar. I could see people pulling out phones, texting, recording. The mayor was already moving toward the exit. Mrs. Davies, I said, pointing to a gray-haired woman in the back row who had flown in from Portland that morning. Our neighbor from 20 years ago. She saw everything. She has photos, timestamps. Clara Davies stood, her chin lifted. I watched that child stand in the rain for 10 minutes before she walked away. I gave her a place to sleep. The Vance family never once asked where she went. The livestream comments exploded. This is insane. Those poor kids. Someone call the news. I handed the microphone back to my father. He took it reflexively, like a man in shock. I didn't come here to destroy you, I said quietly, so only those on stage could hear. I came here to stop being invisible. Then I turned back to the crowd and raised my voice. I'm not asking for your pity. I don't need it. 20 years ago, I was thrown out with nothing. Today, I own a design company in Seattle with 25 employees and over $5 million in annual revenue. My daughter is a junior at the University of Washington. We built our lives without the Vance family's help. I looked directly at the camera. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because my parents tried to buy my silence last week. $250,000 to pretend their lies were true. I'm here because they deserve to face the consequences of what they did, not in private. In front of the community they value more than their own children. Maya climbed onto the stage and took my hand. I'm Maya, she said into the microphone. The granddaughter they never wanted. I'm 19 years old. I've known my whole life that my grandparents chose their reputation over my mother, and by extension over me. She looked at Robert and Patricia. You could have known me. You could have watched me grow up. You could have been at my birthday parties, my school plays, my high school graduation. Her voice cracked. You chose not to, and now you don't get to pretend that was ever our fault. Maya handed back the microphone and walked off the stage. I followed her. Behind us, the crystal ballroom erupted into chaos. At the ballroom door, I turned back one last time. One more thing. My voice cut through the chaos. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to contest the will or demand money. The disinheritance papers you signed 20 years ago, I'm keeping them as a reminder of who you really are, not as a weapon. Robert looked up, confusion on his face. He'd expected a battle, a lawsuit, demands. But understand this. If you ever spread lies about me or my daughter again, if you ever try to contact Maya without her consent or spin some new story about us for your friends, I will make every document I have public. I have the disinheritance letter. I have time-stamped photos. I have witnesses. I nodded toward Mrs. Davies. And now I have 200 witnesses to this conversation. Miriam Shaw appeared at my elbow. Ready? Yes. As we walked through the doors, I heard the bishop's voice. Robert, Patricia, I think we need to talk privately tonight. Maya squeezed my hand as we stepped into the November evening. The air was cold and clean, and for the first time in 20 years, I felt like I could breathe. Mom! Her voice was small. Did we do the right thing? I thought about.